Next level. Next level.
All right, I believe we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, tech fans of all shapes and sizes and sorts and persuasions, welcome to another Monday morning tech chat show on the SGGQA podcast channel. I am Juan Carlos Bagnell, SomeGadgetGuy, the SGG of this terribly named podcast, and the QA stands for the fact that I like the live broadcast of this show to be an interactive conversation with like-minded tech pals. Joining you every Monday morning, 9 a.m. Pacific time. I've seen a few people saying, oh, you're getting started a little earlier. Well, you can thank daylight savings time for having inconsistent clocks and calendars around the world, and it just needs to be abolished. But I digress. The Monday Morning Tech Chat Show, we like to spend a little bit more time digging into some news, having some conversations about stories that might have fallen through the cracks, and then also just not feeding into that knee-jerk reaction. News story hits the Reddits, and then we're worked up about it, and then we never come back to revisit that story or check back in with that news topic. We like to spend a little bit more time looking back, and that's why I like doing the show on Mondays as opposed to waiting till the end of the week on Fridays and then trying to sum up what happened that week. Take the weekend, take a breath, come back in with a fresh pair of eyes. Hopefully you got some rest over the weekend. I know we did not get a lot of rest over the weekend. My wife is prepping for GDC. Because she works for an organization that takes GDC very seriously. My daughter, we were worried that she had pink eye, but she does not have pink eye. She just has her daddy's terrible skin. So it was just like a freak out moment just before GDC. Pink eye, it's the worst. Didn't turn out to be that. And then, of course, yesterday was St. Patrick's Day here in the United States. And again, I'm getting old, and I have a kid, and I was prepping for this podcast and went, oh, you know what? It's St. Patrick's Day today. I'd completely forgotten I should drink 3/4 of a Guinness and then pass out on the couch. So that was my crazy, super awesome St. Patrick's Day. I hope you all had a lot more fun festivities safely. That you were able to go out and do something wild and crazy, because I couldn't hang. Seeing a ton of people in the live chat already. Demir, Aditya, Sharil. I'm seeing Karthik. I'm pretty sure I'm mispronouncing your name. Omer, Alexier, Goran Petrovic. I'm feeling this is already Gary, Ronald Collins, Doomer. I'm feeling like this is already going to be a lively chat. Quite a bit of from Ronald Sims. I went to a parade and then I slept. So about a month ago, my wife and I were planning, like, Lex is getting a little bit older. We should start planning some more cultural things. My dad's family is Irish. We should be really looking at sort of trying to share some of these experiences with her. Had all these grandiose plans. Like, we could do like corned beef and cabbage. We could try and the week before, we should go shopping. We should get all the groceries and stuff that we need. And then, like, the day of, it's like, well, we put Lex in a green t-shirt. Happy St. Patrick's Day. So yeah, very exciting. I want to jump right into some housekeeping. I'm going to try and keep this podcast to under 2 hours, just because I always make that promise, and then we always run crazy long. And surprisingly, we've got a lot to talk about. I was thinking last night, I was looking over my show notes, and I'm like, this is going to be kind of a quiet show. And then Apple was kind enough to drop some iPads. There was a new leak on an iPhone, or some net neutrality news that we can cover. So thankfully, we've got some interesting things to talk about. And I just heard something fall in my living room. Hold on. Gonna listen. I'm gonna make sure I'm not, like, getting robbed or something. I think we're fine. Okay, moving right along. Getting to some housekeeping real quick. I was very excited to take the wraps off all of my updates. Let me go into screen share, because I posted this on the blog even. I don't do a lot of blogging on the blog. The blog is mostly just for embedding videos. This is exciting for me. Written several years ago, but updated yearly. The 2019 updates for my photography book, Take Better Photos, are now live on Kindle. I'm very stoked about this. So, Take Better Photos, Smartphone Photography for Noobs, updated passages on night mode photography, multi-camera phones. I included a new exercise. It's actually really tricky to pull off, but it's a photo effect that I really like. And then, of course, just even though I've been proofreading this book for years, just numerous grammar and spelling problems for as professional of a writer as I am. I think my wife ran the dishwasher. I keep hearing these, like, clicking and scuffling noises. This is really freaky. Anyway, so yes, photography book, Take Better Photos, Smartphone Photography for Noobs. It's actually part of the Kindle Amazon Prime service, so you can read it for free if you're doing the Amazon Prime, or it's a pretty cheap book, so you can check it out. Another piece of housekeeping. So last week I finally finished up a project that I've been working on. A couple months back, I started writing just sort of a loose outline for how I handle headphone reviews. And that turned into like an 1,800, almost 2,000 word diatribe on process and the music that I like to listen to and the tracks that I use to test and what I listen on and all these different pieces and parts. And I was like, you know what, I could try and publish this as some sort of written piece. I could do a standalone video, which would be like 10 minutes of me just talking at the camera. But I really wanted to have more of an engaged conversation, and thankfully, I've been finding a lot of YouTubers out there that are sort of making their rep on things like audio reviews. We're sort of in a renaissance of really high quality, some really exciting, not just smartphone audio, but just mobile audio in general, and it's sort of being birthed on this like wave of ultra low cost, multi-driver, in-ear monitor style headphones. Some really, really cool stuff. So instead of just me talking at the camera like I'm doing right now, I'm going to go back into screen share here because I had a guest reviving one of the podcast subcategories, which is the creator chat. And I was really happy to have LFA Reviews on to talk about headphones and how he got started into YouTube. This is, for me, this is like some of the more exciting stuff here because this is a guy who's been building his channel for a little while. He just broke 10,000 subscribers and almost immediately cracked. I think he's near 12,000 subscribers on his YouTube channel. Found his audience in talking about just really trying to maximize your bang for buck in getting high quality audio. We have some different opinions on things that we like to listen for, but I felt like he approached his headphone reviews from a similar kind of consistency in how he tested his audio kit in the way that I did. So we ended up having an over 2-hour long conversation, just like how you got started, what is it that you're listening for, how do you try and describe some of the experiences that you have when you're checking out a good pair of headphones. And he's just a really, really cool guy. He's just a really, really good guy. So, I mean, obviously you can catch the video of our Hangouts call. If you want the higher quality audio stream, that's available as a separate podcast. You can download that separately. And of course, on Patreon, those are ad-free. But yeah, just some great insights. And then just, it was fun because like as a part of that, you get to geek out on some of your favorite music. You know, we both share a love of Santana and, you know, like different eras of musicianship. And what do you do when you're trying to listen to something a little bassier? What kind of songs do you listen to when you're trying to hear like guitar work or vocals? And just again, I don't think people realize how much forethought actually goes into some of these reviews. Something as subjective and something as personal as headphone tech is very difficult to sum up. You're like, oh, you know, these sound better than these, so these are the winner. You know, like that's not really helpful for a community. You kind of want a little more flavor and a little more nuance and a little more conversation, and especially you want to be able to describe what it is that you like. So I did this with smartphones. I put out a video, my smartphone bias. So when people come to my channel and they accuse me of being biased, I mean, I'm a human being with an opinion. Can't really turn that off. So instead, if I'm just upfront, these are the things that I like. These are the things that I look for. These are the things that I care about. Then if you agree or disagree with me, you at least know where I'm coming from. And especially if you disagree with me, you know how to sort of navigate my review to get the information you want out of it. And so for me, like headphone reviews, I think LFA is probably, I see him in the live chat. Oh, what's up? Speak of the devil, your ears must have been burning. I think he's a little bit more focused on the textural quality and tonality of lower frequency sound, really kind of driving tracks that, you know, carry a bit more of that oomph, where I spent almost 20 years producing voiceover and doing radio and recording human speech. So I'm super sensitive to that mid-range era where talking happens. So, you know, those types of things, like not only just for giving this podcast a listen, because I think you'll gain some interesting insight into the whole process. And when someone takes a headphone review seriously, you can feel it so much more than someone who just went like, oh yeah, I put them in my ears and they sounded great. You're like, I don't know how much I trust that opinion, but more than just that, I hope you give his channel a watch, give him a subscribe, give him a follow, smashing the bell icons, whatever hip YouTubers are doing these days. Because again, I want us to be out there finding community, and especially those people who celebrate community. And I think LFA is an excellent example of an up and coming channel that does just that. So, from Pop Trigger, how much weight do you put into how you look with a certain pair of headphones? Me personally, I put very little because I can't really see me. So unless something is completely outlandishly wrong for my personal style, other people have to look at me. If they sound amazing and they look kind of funky, then I don't care. Other people have to deal with it, not me. I can just get on with it. So, yes, those are the two exciting bits of housekeeping. We have a couple more things just to tease for some upcoming projects. I've got a lot of videos coming out. In fact, I've got one scheduled for tonight, another one scheduled for tomorrow. I've got an article on benchmarking, another sort of follow-up on benchmarking, the problems with benchmarking phones, coming out either tomorrow or Wednesday. This is going to be a busy week, and as soon as I'm done with this podcast, I'm going to be shooting 5 more videos that I'm going to have to start cutting and editing. So some really fun stuff. Yes, this is all true. So let's jump into some news. Scully's from Scully's House of Thrillers. That's amazing. I don't know what you're replying to, but I agree. I am pretty cool. Harry Green, Juan Bagnell. Good afternoon from London. Hello, London. Goran Petrovic. Everyone, check out Demir's review of the Denon €1,500 D9200 headphones. And from Johnny Fate, like those pink headphones with cat ears. So I did unfortunately have to wear my daughter's princess headphones. So we were traveling. They weren't super great. I wanted to protect my daughter's ears a bit better. We had 3 different phones. I didn't plan for all of the dongles and adapters we might need. So I ended up giving my daughter the really nice over-ear Bluetooth headphones with noise reduction. I was like, well, I got to listen to something. And I couldn't get to my earbuds because they were sort of jammed in my backpack, which had to be stowed above. And I did half a flight on a pair of princess pink little kid headphones, just trying to listen to podcasts, and it was terrible. So not great. From EG1BA iPad mini hype, we're going to be talking about iPads. We're going to be talking about iPhones. So a little bit later in the video, we of course need to start jumping in on some news. I kept the housekeeping reasonably concise this week. Now I'm talking about keeping the housekeeping concise, so I'm wasting time. So that's not great. Let me get this back. And let's jump into this one first. Okay. If there's a story about net neutrality, I'm going to try and cover it because this is one of the most pressing issues facing the tech community. It's one with the largest bipartisan consensus, and the only people that haven't seemed to figure that out are the politicians in Washington. So this is by way of CNET, written up by Marguerite Reardon. Democrats hit the gas on net neutrality bill. I don't know that the situation is really as exciting as this headline would make it out to be, but we are seeing further traction that the House is trying to move forward on some type of enshrined net neutrality provisions. From the article, Representative Mike Doyle, who's shepherding the Democrats' bill in the House of Representatives to restore the Obama-era net neutrality protection, says he's not waiting for Republican support before bringing the proposed legislation to a vote. In an interview with CNET, the Democrat from Pennsylvania who chairs the House Energy and Commerce Committee Subcommittee on Communications and Technology, that's a mouthful, criticized his colleagues on the other side of the aisle for not making a good faith effort to work across party lines to put net neutrality protections in place. He said he'd like to get bipartisan support for the Save the Internet Act, but that even without it, his bill, supported by House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, will get a vote in April. Now, there isn't a ton of news. We talked about this a little last week and the week before, that Nancy Pelosi, House Democrats, were looking at legislation to restore some of the FCC regulatory actions that the original open internet order enshrined during the Obama administration under Tom Wheeler. So what we're looking at here doesn't seem like it's a complete restoration of Title II regulations. I am a huge proponent. I'm a huge advocate of Title II. I think the best way to enforce a healthier, fairer, and more competitive marketplace, if you like capitalism, is to make sure that there is a light touch, reactive regulatory agency that can police ISPs when they do things like throttle services or disrupt traffic, or start putting in unfair data caps, or you start messing with a region's data. You know, we've been investing billions of dollars in public funds and public infrastructure for things like fiber to home, and ISPs and carriers have not delivered it, and now they're trying to act like 5G is going to be the magic solution. But 5G won't do anything for most of this country, especially the more rural areas of this country, if we're not also investing in things like backhaul. I think one small step in the right direction at the federal level is to enshrine the regulations necessary to prevent ISPs from controlling how data is moved on the internet. That's classifying the internet as a telecommunication service, not an information service. And I've seen no good legal explanation for why we should consider the entire backbone of infrastructure of the internet as an information service. It's like saying the internet is the same thing as Facebook. And I am using sort of a doofy voice there because that's kind of what Ajit Pai, FCC Chairman Ajit Pai, sounds like to me. So, the reason why I wanted to post this article, and it's going to be in the show notes, it's going to be in the links after this podcast goes to audio. The reason why I wanted to talk about the CNET one is it's a pretty lengthy interview. There are a lot of questions back and forth, especially this notion of trying to reach a bipartisan consensus. There is a bipartisan consensus in the American population. Most Americans, we're talking polling that usually hovers around 80%, agree on some kind of regulatory agency or action that will help competition and help smaller players and prevent ISPs from controlling what happens there. I think it's a pretty clear indication that there is a chunk of our elected officials that aren't working in the interests of their constituents and are instead more swayed by the arguments of the actual telecommunications lobbying efforts, especially when lobbyists from smaller ISPs and larger ISPs, both major organizations of lobbying for the telecoms, have said, what you need to do is you need to invest more public money into our infrastructures and then let us keep all the profits. You need to fund the internet like a public utility, but then we get to keep all of the money that we make from it. Which this cycle has been ongoing for like the last 20 years. We keep giving them more money. We keep giving them better sweetheart deals. We keep giving them preferred zoning. We let them set up local monopolies or duopolies. And then we let them keep all the profits, but then they don't really deliver on their promises for improving services. So I want you guys and gals and tech fans to be well versed on what's happening here, because this is going to be another one of those political double-edged swords, in my opinion. The Republicans have no interests that they've demonstrated. They've shown no interest in actually coming to some kind of compromise or working across the aisle, but then they're the first to complain about a lack of bipartisan efforts. The only time they seem to come to the table is if the conversation hinges on, we'll give the Republicans everything they want, and then they'll agree to then push what they want even farther. In this telecommunication space. And again, this is something where I find very little compelling argument against having the FCC be in charge of Title II style regulation over the internet. So I think this is a good read. This is a good read to see where the Democrats are coming from. They're able to pass this in the House. Obviously, nothing's going to happen in the Senate. Whether or not McConnell even lets something like this go up for a vote is highly dubious. But again, this is something that we need to keep track of, just like when we were watching all of the shenanigans going down with Obamacare, just as when we watch problems with how our elected officials handle things like VA funding. They love to support the troops, except for when it's time to actually support the troops. This is one of those ongoing stories that if we're not continuously updated and kept informed, the mainstream media does a terrible job of talking about techie things. As soon as something gets a little geeky, they kind of wig out and then go, oh, what do you think? It could be bad. It could be good. Who knows? And you're like, no, there's a pretty broad consensus of informed voters that, again, side with some sort of regulatory action. And if we don't keep a good handle on these types of stories, then we're woefully unequipped to talk about other developments, like when Elizabeth Warren says that she wants to break up Facebook. Try and watch a local news broadcast about covering Elizabeth Warren talking about breaking up Facebook. You can just watch like local news anchors who just read off teleprompters and their brains are exploding because like they're just being sort of fed what to say. And I do a lot of work on local news, so let me tell you, it's a pretty interesting dynamic when you've got certain story points that you need to hit, but then you're also you've got marching orders on what you're supposed to cover. So yes, 5G ain't gonna fix this. In fact, if you're a patriot and you care about defense, you care about the sovereignty of the United States, you care about infrastructure. One of the best things you could be hoping for is some type of regulatory action to protect competition, but then also deregulating all of the states that prevent competition for ISPs. Because if we had more fiber to home, our electrical grid probably wouldn't be in as dire a situation as it is today. From Michael Harding, the mainstream media is the stereotypical response that we expect from our elders. Even the tech people on those channels barely have a rudimentary knowledge of technology in today's internet culture. And I think what's most disappointing is when they do get someone, when they do get their hands on someone who really does know what they're talking about. It's how do you sum up the good arguments and the potential bad arguments for something like net neutrality in a 2-minute news piece? I was talking with another one of my reporter friends, and he's putting together news broadcasts where, with intros, outros, bumpers, and graphics, they're expecting summation of a news topic in under 90 seconds. Of course, everything is going to be black, white, polarized. Some people say it's good. Some people say it's bad. Whatever your preconceived ideas are, you'll probably just have your preconceived notions reinforced. Back to you, Ted. There's no way to tackle something like this. But if you do want sort of a more nuanced conversation, one, read the article that I'll have linked in the show notes, but then also give Gigi Sohn, Gigisohn. Gigi Sohn is a distinguished fellow at the Georgetown Law Institute for Technology, Law, and Policy. She was counsel for Tom Wheeler when Tom Wheeler was at the FCC, and she's probably the most well-versed advocate for something like Title II regulation over the internet. In fact, a lot of my opinions have been formed because of her analysis on the current trends post Ajit Pai taking over the FCC. And she's pretty much been right about everything. If you're worried about disadvantaged communities, minority voices having the ability to disseminate speech, if you're concerned about pricing, if you're concerned about throttling, competition, basically everything that she sort of posited as a concern is happening today. So she is one of the number one voices in this discussion that I think deserves more attention. Gigishon, Gigi Sohn. All right. From Pop Trigger, do you have a contingency in place in the event that YouTube has an outage similar to what happened to Facebook recently? Why, Pop Trigger, I don't know of what you speak. There is certainly no way that I would be co-streaming this podcast on any other services like Twitch or Periscope or Mixer. That certainly couldn't be. For YouTube is all, and they've probably already demonetized this video anyway, because anytime I talk about politics, that's a bridge too far. I mean, it's not like I'm out there making fun of suicide victims in a Japanese suicide forest, because that's fine. That you get like a little slap on the wrist, and that scares away a bunch of advertisers, so they change the rules on smaller YouTubers and smaller broadcasters, but then you're still given a platform to sell your merch on. But me talking about, net neutrality, man, politics is divisive. Ronald Collins also knows what's up, because this is also on Periscope right now, but it's not. It's only on YouTube. For YouTube is Bay. All right, moving on. This is another story that kind of hits a little near and dear to my heart. I want you to rewind. I want you to kind of keep in mind where we were several years ago, the sort of heyday, the newness of Foursquares and Twitters and Instagrams, and Google failing multiple times to get some kind of social networking service off the ground. And they eventually landed on Google+. Google Plus was the first social network that I actually found some real traction on. Day one, set up my account, started sharing stuff, blew up, hit like 30,000 followers in like the first week. And then that all sort of tapered off from there. And then they did a bunch of really dumb things like linking YouTube comments. Oh boy. So again, no one I think is surprised, and I don't think anyone's that sad that Google Plus is going away. Google Plus is dying. But it brings up some really interesting philosophical questions. And so this is a story out of Engadget, caught my eye on Reddit, another social news service that archives content for really long periods of time. The Internet Archive races to preserve public Google Plus posts. The social network won't completely vanish after April 2nd. This is from, I am going to mispronounce this name, John Fingus? From the article. Just because Google Plus is shutting down on April 2nd does not mean your years of social posts will be lost in the void. The archive team recently started caching public Google Plus content to make it available on the Internet Archive after the fateful day. This won't include content that was deleted or made private before the archival process began, and might not include all comments or full resolution media. Still, this will ensure that you have some way of reliving moments down the road. From the nitpicker, Google doing dumb things? No way! Eye-rolly emoticon, eye-rolly emoticon, eye-rolly emoticon. Gadget Goddess, I'm going to miss Google Plus too. There were so many good ideas in Google Plus, and their biggest misstep was trusting an audience to actually search for things. You would log into your Google Plus account and there wouldn't be anything there because you weren't following anyone. And I don't think they had very good onboarding tools, like getting you into using the service and getting you finding things, which is silly considering Google is all about search. So the whole idea was, well, you search for something and then you put it in a circle, and then that's your circle of things that you like. And then that was too much for someone who wanted the immediacy of like, well, I just follow all of my high school buddies on Facebook. And like, okay, cool. But, you know, you still had to look for them on Facebook. Now you're just used to Never mind. This is one of those things that I like bringing up when stories like this hit, because I don't think people fully realize, you know, we have those sayings, you know, don't put something on the internet that you wouldn't want to have live in public forever, right? Except for the fact that we're putting stuff on services that are likely going to be temporary to some degree. It's why I think one of the best pieces of advice I can give to someone who wants to become an online content creator of some sort today is to not become popular on a service for the sake of that one service, is to really diversify and to really try and reach out to communities across every single platform that you feel comfortable actually using, so that when something like this happens, when a Google Plus goes down, if a Twitter goes down, we had Facebook and Instagram outages, that it's not my entire identity is wrapped up and promoted and distributed through this one portal. You have the internet. I mean, it's why like it's still worthwhile to pay for a website and hosting, and I really, really wish I had that, you know, like that GoDaddy or Squarespace sponsorship cash coming in, but I don't. But I think it's still critical to have something, if it's a WordPress, if it's a blogger, so that you always have a platform to share your ideas and to share your content. And that's another reason why I am a huge advocate for archive.org. I really want you folks to go out and check out archive.org. Maybe the next time Wikipedia is doing some kind of, you know, like funding drive, maybe instead consider kicking a couple dollars over to Archive, because it's a team of people with, you know, multiple servers around the world, backups, they're just trying to archive the internet. And that sounds crazy, but they're doing an amazing job of collecting information and preserving information. We live in sort of a monetization obsessed society, and we have been for media for a while. You can look at movies. If a movie doesn't sell very well, it disappears. And that's kind of terrible. When I was hosting the movie review show, Movies You May Have Missed, which is now struggling to find somewhere to live outside of archive.org. The only place to watch a handful of the episodes that we've recovered is on Archive. They can't be on YouTube, and every other video streaming platform that we were on has disappeared. We covered a film. It was a Rock Hudson movie that was almost the entire cast were blacklisted Hollywood actors during the McCarthy era, and it got a very limited DVD release, and now it's exceedingly difficult to find this film. The film is called Seconds, and it's this beautiful, paranoid, almost Twilight Zone episode of a black and white movie all about living a double life and hiding in plain sight. And it's just a gorgeous piece of cinema. And again, it's really hard to find a good copy of it. It'll probably never get a remaster, re-release, Blu-ray, HD, 4K, nothing. So that piece of media just disappears. And that's a valuable piece of film history, a genuinely haunting and entertaining movie, and from an actor who was himself leading a double life, Rock Hudson. I always bring that up as like this example. This piece of media disappeared because whoever owned the copyright couldn't make enough money on it to keep it alive. This is gonna ramp up, and this problem will exacerbate in the world of digital-only content. You know, think about when YouTube finally decides that they just want to be a Netflix-like service, and you have YouTube TV and YouTube Music, and every move Google has made has been towards supporting larger publishers, and often at the expense of smaller, home-based, up-and-coming online content creators, right? In fact, they keep making it more difficult for smaller content creators to do things like reach monetization and get better tools for managing their content. Oh, and I see Viper is in the house dropping fire. He dropped numerous fire. Let's see. I'm going to count them right now. Let's see. That's 1 fire, 2 fire, 3 fire, 4 fire, 5 fire, 6 fire, 7 fire, 8 fire, 9 fire, 10 fire, 11 fire, 12 fire, 13 fire. Viper dropped 14 fire in this podcast. You know this is lit. 14 times over. All right. So, oh, yes. So to piggyback, a perfect example of why I am concerned about preserving internet culture, preserving internet information, is exactly what just happened over at MySpace. The culmination of a year-long data recovery scandal, and no big surprise, it's a train wreck. So let me switch back over into screen share. This is from Boing Boing, which I hate that word just came out of my mouth twice. MySpace lost all the music its users uploaded between 2003 and 2015. Okay, this is from the article from Cory Doctorow. First of all, let me click back over. You know how I was saying Gigi Sohn is like one of those crazy, amazing voices in the conversation about net neutrality? Cory Doctorow is one of these crazy, amazing voices that you should be listening to in terms of internet culture, media culture, remixing, remastering, copyright, IP law. And he's written a ton of awesome, like, young adult novels that are super, super fun to read. Cory Doctorow. Remember that name. Super awesome dude. If he's talking about preserving internet culture and remix culture, that is a voice that you want to be listening to. Back to the article. It's been a year since the music links on MySpace stopped working. At first, the company insisted that they were working on it, but now they've admitted that all the files are lost. Quote, as a result of a server migration project, any photos, videos, and audio files you uploaded more than 3 years ago may no longer be available on or from MySpace. We apologize for the inconvenience. And suggest that you retain your backup copies. If you would like more information, please contact our data protection officer, Dr. Yana at dpo@myspace.com. Because apparently they don't have a backup I love this a year after the fact. A full year after the fact. Oh, by the way, keep your backups. Because we don't have one. See, this is really sad because, like, again, look at internet culture. Twitter struggles to find some type of monetization or profitability. SoundCloud has been in the red, has talked about mergers, acquisitions, hostile takeovers. They don't have a system in place to really make money off of a service that has been defining, up and coming music for a while now. And if anyone was going to compete against SoundCloud, the one thing that MySpace had going for it was still a backbone service for artists and musicians to share content on. It's kind of like, MySpace used to be the hotness, SoundCloud took over, but there was still a momentum and infrastructure there. It was kind of like Flickr, like most people are more apt to interact with something like Instagram or Facebook for sharing photos, but there was an infrastructure and a momentum behind all of the photo communities on Flickr. It was still a great resource. Cory Doctorow goes on in this article. I'm going to go back into screen share. I'm just going to read this. The whole thing's only 2 paragraphs long. Secondly, this will happen to Facebook, Instagram, Tumblr, etc. I mean, especially if you're a porn blogger. This is my edition, not from the article. Especially if you're a porn blogger, it's kind of already happened to Tumblr. Don't trust the platforms to archive your data. The Internet Archive will host anything freely distributable for free forever, and they have mirrors of their servers in California, Egypt, and Amsterdam. They're a mission-driven nonprofit supported by philanthropists, foundations, and small money donations. I'm an annual donor. I am also an annual donor. I give $10 a year. It's not a lot, but it's, considering all of the charities and organizations that Marie and I support, rather than just like, oh, we're going to dump $100 into the JDRF this month, we try and break up, like if there's a GoFundMe that we want to support, or if there's an organization. I am a very passionate believer in the mission of the Internet Archive, and this is a prime example of why. We can't count on services like Facebook to in perpetuity for forever, for till the end of human civilization, to back up all of your cat photos. At some point, you reach a tipping point where it's no longer feasible to maintain all of that. From Pop Trigger, Juan, do you back up all of your videos? I do. In fact, my wife and I were looking at building a new NOS, because I had to get a Western Digital to recover the information that was eaten by our older Western Digital. So right now I'm sitting on 12 terabytes of storage just under my desk, right there, with all of our cherished, like the full documentation of Lex's early childhood, family photos, the dog that we loved that passed away, videos. I shoot everything in 4K, and I've been shooting everything in 4K since the Note 4. Yeah, so we're looking at building a new array and probably tripling the amount of storage. And I keep a pretty healthy archive. I'll often keep video clips from project files for around 3 years. So shooting in 4K video, I think I go back to Galaxy S7 era, and I still have full resolution project files from most of the phones and gadgets that I reviewed from that point on. After about 3 years, I get rid of all of the project files, but I still keep the finished render that I can always use as a resource in future videos and future content. Ronald Sims is a good dude. In our live chat, I give $5 a year to the archive. I mean, literally every little bit. This is an organization I wholeheartedly support, and I hope other people will check them out more. And then also just go troll them. Go dig through. It's the home of the Wayback Machine, so you can see what old websites look like. I found them initially because I was looking for a copy of the George Romero classic Night of the Living Dead. Night of the Living Dead had a title change that wasn't properly registered. It was originally going to be called Night of the Flesh Eaters. They weren't supposed to be zombies in the way that we think of zombies today. So when they changed the title from Night of the Flesh Eaters to Night of the Living Dead, that wasn't properly registered, and the film instantly fell into the public domain. A completely genre-defining movie was instantly publicly available. You can do anything you want with it. You can share it legally. You can distribute it. It's crazy and terrible. But on archive.org, there is a copy of the cleaned up Blu-ray transfer. So I think it's like a 17 or 18 gigabyte file of Night of the Living Dead. Go watch it or go download it for free. That's exactly, like that mission. You can't make money on Night of the Living Dead, the original film, because it's public domain. There needs to be an organization that helps distribute that. It can't just be up to us, sort of sharing flash drives or sending files. All right, Pop Trigger, Super Chat, $1 in the house. Thank you so much for supporting this podcast. Supporting Internet Archive is cool, but, this podcast is also pretty cool too. Thanks, man. All right. Oh, I'm going to pop my back here. Okay. One other just quick story. This isn't a big deal, but this is going to highlight... I don't know if I want to make it a video or an article. Again, I'm kind of torn on making everything video because I've been kind of swamped on just gadget reviews. But let me get this queued up here and back into the screen share. So this is just coming by way of our videos on Reddit, but something that I'm kind of interested in because it's still a solution that we need today. Mozilla launches its free encrypted file sharing service, Send, where you can share files up to 2.5 gigabytes in size. And they've got the video here. I mean, I guess I can click on it. I'll probably get a copyright tag, but why do we care? I've already probably been demonetized for talking about politics. So when you go through this, you can upload a file up to 2.5 gig. You can set a time limit for when it expires and who has access to that link, and then you send the file off. So we've been incorporating services like this into other platforms. If you're sending Gmail to Gmail or now like web email hosting to web email hosting, Google will let you attach I think it's like 25 megabytes or 30 megabytes to an email, or then you could also attach something to your Google Drive, and send larger files than that. I use OneDrive as my cloud storage solution. It's just so interesting to me that we still need some type of handoff service. When I share super large files, now I just give people a link to my network attached storage and they can download it from that. Maybe it's not as fast as a dedicated Firefox server, but it works pretty well. Not having that means that we still need some sort of bucket, a temporary bucket to hand over another file that you can download and incorporate. So just kind of cool. What I want to do, what I'm planning a video on is just another look back, for 2019, what are some other services that you can use to diversify your smartphone or mobile experience? And so I at the end of last year, I went all in on Firefox. I basically only use Chrome to interact with YouTube and Hangouts. Because Google broke their support for other browsers in Hangouts, and Hangouts is a miserable train wreck of a video streaming service, but it's kind of the only one we've got. Wink, wink. So I'm looking at, if I wanted to make a phone that was still, completely interoperable with modern lifestyle, what services would I use? And so obviously there are a bunch of platform services like Twitter and Facebook. They sort of exist off in their own little cubbies. But maybe I don't want to put all my eggs into Apple's infrastructure. Maybe I don't want to put all of my eggs into Google's basket. I've recently started firing up Here We Go, Here Maps, formerly Nokia Maps. And you're like, the voice and turn directions are terrible, but this is actually a really great mapping service. And I like being able to download maps, so it's not using data for GPS, which is silly. Firefox as my browser, and Firefox synced across all of my devices. So I want to send a tab. It goes from my desktop to my phone. You're like, that was an advantage for Chrome. We can have that in other places, in other in other services. So I'm looking at some of those other solutions. You know, I use OneDrive for a lot of my cloud backup and storage and for photo archiving and stuff like that. What are some other platforms and services that we can use to help spread some things out? And so the more I think about it, the more I think that that can just be an article. Like, I don't do another talking at the camera for 10 minutes to talk about how I'm not using Google for everything. But I think in this sort of modern era, it's worth revisiting those conversations. And again, checking in. Are there still good services here? Have we lost competition by, you know, oh, it's just so convenient to sign in once with Gmail and then everything goes to Google. Or also compartmentalizing. We can say, you know, oh, iOS is a more secure operating system. But you know, my favorite thing is like when people say like, oh, well, Apple doesn't profit from selling your data, except that they get billions of dollars a year from Google to make sure that Google search is the only search that Siri can use and the default search for their browser. But they don't profit from Google getting all of your search behavior. No, except for the billions they get from Google to do that. So that's great. From Pop Trigger, Firefox OS became Kai OS on entry-level devices. There's an Alcatel flip phone sold here with Kai, but sadly the Kai store is disabled. Not a great look. I probably won't be switching over to Kai OS. Doomer231, I've been watching videos about alternatives to Google services, and the more I watch them, the more I'm interested to semi-de-Googleify myself. Because I feel like in modern society, you can't completely get away from using some of these core backbones, right? Philosophically, it's not like I could just boycott Amazon and then not use any of the services that are on AWS. It's not like I can boycott Microsoft and then not use all of the stuff that's like Azure, cloud, and sort of Office or OneDrive dependent. I can't boycott Google and then be like, oh, but search. So really, it's more, I want to find a few alternatives to kind of spread stuff out, but do so in a way that I feel like it's still somewhat secure. You know, it's not just I'm going to get rid of Google Photos for the sake of getting rid of Google Photos. I still want purpose behind that, and I still want an advantage. But I get real frustrated with people like, oh, yeah, well, I tried and it wasn't as good. And you're like, no, it's just as good. You were just mad that the setup was a second less convenient because you had to sign up for an account or put in your email and login credentials, and that has a different UI than what you're familiar with. I run into that a lot, and it's very frustrating. From Hansel Law, well, in a bit, we don't even need to download Chrome since Edge is going Chromium. Yeah, I don't know why Microsoft made that change. From Frutotrella, hello from Greece. Hey, Greece, what's up? Ronald Sims, yeah, F Amazon, I hate working there. I'm so sorry, man. Aditya Anil, I've tried using Edge for 2 months, but it sucks so badly. Had to go back to Chrome. I feel like I committed a sin. You know, what's so silly? Edge isn't bad. It's just, it's got a lot of odd choices in it from the Internet Explorer days. And I think their initial concept for it was too focused on touch. Trying to make Internet Explorer good for touch screens, you ended up with all of the worst compromises as opposed to making it the best series of compromises for all users. You ended up with kind of the worst of both worlds, not the best of both worlds. But it's silly. I still use Edge all the time for opening PDFs. I don't know why. There are tons of PDF readers and better PDF readers, but there's something so immediate and easy. Again, talk about convenience. That's like the one thing I still like, nah, I'll just open it in Edge. Again, we're trying to untangle my own psychiatry there, or psychology there. It's completely impossible. It is. From Ronald Sims, Edge is such an odd duck. And from Joseph Kim, Edge is the best for touch experiences. Yeah, try and use Chrome or Firefox on a touchscreen, and it's not good. And Edge works great. But again, I just feel like there's weird Internet Explorer elements that kind of keep me, because I work in a very mixed environment. Even on a laptop, there are things that I just like reaching up and touching the screen to do, kind of like that. And then there are things where it's like, oh, well, no, I've got my keyboard shortcuts or mouse click, and then I can do this really easily. And moving back and forth, Edge just doesn't keep working right in my brain. Regardless, I digress. I want to take a quick break. First of all, I need to drink some water out of the most delicious coffee mug available for purchase today, especially if you're a phone photography fan and you really like megapixels. Sort of a semi-regular check-in. I want to do this every week. Some weeks I forget. Some weeks just kind of slow. But and kind of going along with the chat that we had at the beginning of this podcast, talking about YouTubers that I'm really excited to find, up-and-comers, smaller content creators that aren't really pushed by YouTube's algorithms anymore. Like, for example, I mentioned this on Twitter. It was probably 2 weeks ago now. I subscribed to someone's channel. I think they had like 5,000 subscribers. And then YouTube pops up with recommendations. You're like, oh, if you like this kind of content, you might be interested in following these other content creators. And like all of them had at least 3 million subscribers. And you're like, YouTube, you not only got this wrong, because none of them had a similar tone to the channel that I had just subscribed to, but all of them were like the most mass market YouTube lifestyle technology commentators that I've already told YouTube numerous times that I am not interested in following. And that was their recommendation for other channels to follow after I had followed someone with like 5,000 subs. And I'm getting real tired of that because the greatest advantage that YouTube is missing out on is this long tail idea of keeping people on YouTube as a service. They're not leveraging the hard work of people who are barely able to monetize their videos. So, AdityaNL has already beaten me to the punch. Folks, you should subscribe to our glowing rectangles on Reddit. I just want to do a quick recap. These are some of the top stories that were posted over the last week. Our glowing rectangles is a tiny little experiment, slowly growing, but showing growth. We're now up to 290 subscribers. We're about to break into 300s. There is no like benefit for that other than just more people. But more and more people are starting to share content from some other subscribers. It's not just me finding YouTubers that I like and automatically posting their stuff. We're starting to see a little bit more conversation on some of these posts, a little bit more upvoting on some of these posts. But again, it's all about trying to find people that either are up and coming and maybe they haven't broken into monetization, they're doing good work, you want to talk about them in the tech space, or they're also content creators that deserve more attention. I keep bringing him up and I hate using him as the example, but Patrick Norton at Tech Thing. You're talking about a classic voice in the world of DIY and digging into the guts of technology and just a profound understanding of technological trends. And an episode of his show, really well produced, high production quality show, might get like 20,000 views. He should be doing better than that. And YouTube now completely devalues those types of longer form conversations. So again, I'm going to go over into our glowing rectangles, but just that's another, like, you should follow LFA reviews, you should follow Cory Doctorow, you should follow Gigi Sohn, and you should give Tech Thing a watch on YouTube because Patrick Norton is a badass. Our glowing rectangles from the last week, top stories. From JabberTech, $70 Bluetooth headphones with active noise canceling. What? That's not really the name of the video, but that's what he titled it on Our Glowing Rectangles. We should talk to JabberTech about his titles on Our Glowing Rectangles. But I've actually used these. These are the Mixter E9. $70, active noise cancellation, pretty good seal around the ear. You should check out his review. It's a pretty good once-over on a budget pair of headphones. Probably not great for audiophiles, but might be a great solution for someone on a budget or maybe a first pair of headphones for some kids. I don't know who this dork is. Honor View 20 phone for gaming, whatever. But then the next two top stories: Galaxy S10 coverage. TK Bay dropping a video why the Galaxy S10e is maybe the better choice, maybe the better value over the S10 and the S10 Plus. TK is another a wealth of knowledge, just an incredible, consistent, and again, a very well-learned advocate in the tech space. And then you always got to love a video coming up from Easy Computer Solutions. He's totally wrong about phones like the BlackBerry Key 2, so don't hold that against him. I mean, it's okay to be wrong occasionally. I hope he'll eventually see the light on how wrong he is. But he also has a video, a Samsung Galaxy S10e gaming review, checking battery life, heat, test, performance. He's got the Galaxy S10e plugged into a little Bluetooth game controller there. And again, another interesting video just kind of looking at one aspect of phone performance. Especially from those two videos combined, I still don't know if I'm going to circle back to cover a Samsung in the first half of the year. I might just wait until we see what their Note strategy is. I'm not going to get a Galaxy Fold. I refuse to review that because I don't believe it's a real phone, and I'm not going to spend $2,000 to tell you that it's not a real phone. But the S10e has been kind of piquing my interest. I like more the experiences I've been having between the $500 and $700 price bracket, as opposed to pretending that $1,000 is somehow the appropriate price for a normal flagship phone experience. When we've got phones that are coming out brand new for less than the price of a Galaxy S4 when the Galaxy S4 launched, not accounting for inflation, and they're offering top tier screaming fast performance, great features, great perks, like even like an Honor View 20 becomes a much more compelling conversation, and it's a lot more fun because that's €600, not €999, and you don't miss for much in that kind of comparison. So the S10e, again, and I also like smaller phones, a lot more interesting. So a pair of great videos on the S10e, TK Bay, Easy Computer Solutions, and just, a fun little budget review on some Bluetooth headphones. So some great stuff going up over on our Glowing Rectangles. Please give it a subscription. Please contribute. Upvotes, posting videos or articles. It doesn't have to be videos. It's kind of taken over for video, but if you're following a blogger and they're writing up some interesting stuff, give it a share over here too. What I hope this will grow into is a link farm. I seriously doubt this will ever be a top subreddit, but if something gets more attention in this subreddit, maybe it can be used as a platform to help someone out. If a content creator with 1,000 subs has a video go viral on one of the major subreddits, that could be a huge boon for their channel. And so what we want to do is keep the SEO high, keep the interactions high, and give them a platform where they can also self-promote so that hopefully their stuff can be found by other people that can spread the word, talk more, be bigger, do some cool stuff. Aditi Anil, TK is the most positive tech tuber around. He always finds the positive in the least likely scenarios and offers proper, suitable points of improvement for the product in question. I just like it that he's very low hype. He's a pretty chill commentator, and it's real easy for me to follow what it is that he's talking, even when he gets in the weeds about some really techie stuff. From Nicholas, hello from Argentina. Argentina? Ugh. Hey, Argentina, what's up? Ronald Collins has to go clock in and start a shift at Amazon. I'm sorry, buddy. Paco Street, I found the advanced gestures video from TK to be more interesting. The S10e evaluation was pretty much expected in comparison. And then let's get this down here. Aditya Anil, it will be the top subreddit for up-and-coming tech tubers. #confidence. Well, that's what I want it to grow into, but it can't do that without your support, without your interactions. And again, if you want good conversations, you want new voices, you want healthy discussion, you want a vibrant tech community, it used to be where you could produce content on YouTube and then people could just passively watch, and that was sort of good enough. That's not the case anymore. If you want this stuff to grow, if you want it to be healthy, if you want it to if you want it to continue, you need to be more active. just passively watching someone's channel is not much of a benefit. Joining a conversation, dropping comments, sharing content that you like. I mean, outside, far and away, clicking on affiliate links or supporting Patreons, all those other things that you can do to contribute directly to funding production on someone's channel, it's just stepping up your game with very simple interactions. Just a tiny bit of effort on your part starts to make a huge difference in the life cycle of a YouTube channel. It's you kind of crest over and you start getting a more engaged user base. I mean, again, like, this is a phenomenal chat. I have so much fun being able to jump into these types of conversations and see people actually replying to each other, like having a conversation even minus what I'm talking about, the words that are coming out of my face. So those are the ways that you can contribute your effort. If you can't contribute financially, your effort is just as valuable for a lot of content creators. And I'm trying to put my money where my mouth is and saying, like, maybe we can create a platform for that. I don't know if this idea has legs, but it's showing steady and consistent growth. So let's keep pushing that, because maybe it'll get better. From Total Tech, nope, those days are over. I remember when I had 20,000 subscribers on YouTube and I was regularly getting featured in YouTube search, SEO, recommendations. If you liked this video, watch this video. I could make rent on 20,000 subscribers. Now I'm about to break 85. And from February to March, this time period over last month time period, I think I'm going to make about 20% less. And I'm going to make about a sixth of my rent. So that's how bad this last adpocalypse has hit for people that are trying to create content online. From Total Tech, we will work on Eric from Easy Computer Solutions with the BlackBerry. So I brought my Key 2. I fired it up, ran all the updates. I haven't had the SIM card in it for a while. I'm still wrapping up, obviously my other, like, Island of Misfit Toys phone, the Nokia 9. So this has the SIM card in it right now. But I'm going through using the BlackBerry. He's like, I can't see anything that he's complaining about. And I love that his story gets more histrionic every time he tells it. Like, oh, I tried to do some advanced multitasking, and I put in this thing on it, and I went and I ordered a beer, and a glacier came by and carved a whole new Marianas Trench in the restaurant I was sitting at, and it still hadn't loaded my PowerPoint. And you're like, I don't think that's true. All in love, because Eric is one of my favorite content creators on YouTube. I'm going to work on my impersonation of him to make it even more ridiculous and over the top. But it's like every time I talk to him about the BlackBerry, it seems like his lag grows to more historic proportions of not being able to launch an app or something on the phone. It's pretty hilarious. And from Total Tech, I make all that money on Amazon. I mean, I have an Amazon affiliate. My book is on Kindle. It's diversifying. You do not put all your eggs in one basket. From the Executioner, just browsed glowing rectangles, and most of the posts don't even have one upvote or one comment. Well, most of the posts don't have any comments, but I'm going through. Most of them have at least an upvote or two. But that's just it, is you got to start from somewhere. And Executioner, if you want to see more upvotes on posts and you want to find new content creators, maybe drop some upvotes. See? When you participate, you actually contribute to the discovery and the proliferation of new content. So don't be stingy. Drop some upvotes. If you see a problem, be the solution. Be the light. Be the change you want to see in the world. From Marcel Clappert, yesterday's live chat of the Nitpicker was entered by a group of spam internet trolls. Have you ever experienced such stuff in your live chat? I haven't as often in the chat. Back before I joined Pocket Now, I was getting a lot of people brigading. I was being somewhat critical of Apple and Samsung, like I'm often critical of Apple and Samsung. But that was sort of the heyday of the really scary death threats and near doxing situations. A couple times where I've screen capped stuff and sent it to law enforcement, and that isn't as visceral now. I haven't had anything quite so disruptive now. Most of the time, it's just people making fun of my coffee-stained teeth. And I love coffee, tea, and red wine, so that's probably not going to change anytime soon. But nothing so disruptive. And lately on the channel, I've also taken to just sort of no warnings ban hammer. At this point, because we are responsible, YouTube content creators are now responsible for the comments on their videos. Your videos can also be demonetized if people leave nasty comments. I've basically turned on every sort of keyword, hold comments for, hold them in a bucket so that you can verify them. Comments with links in them get automatically sort of shoved aside into spam. Like, it's just really gross. And it takes a lot of the fun out of trying to have sort of a healthy and divisive comment section. I used to just sort of let that go. But now it's, if someone's even moderately off topic, minorly off topic, I just nuke them. It's too much now. And what little money I still make on YouTube is already sort of in danger of evaporating. So I don't need to give YouTube any more ammunition. So I look at every video as a forum post. So if you go to a forum, like say you go to XDA developers and you go to the LGG6 forum and you start complaining about, a Nexus 5, you're off topic. You will be hounded by the XDA community rightfully for cluttering up the LGG6 forum conversations. So if you go to one of my videos and you complain about something that's not a part of the video, or you start insulting me or another user directly, you start commenting off what the video is about, you're not really addressing anything in the video, then you just get nuked. And I'm not giving warnings anymore. You're just evaporated. You're gone. From the nitpicker, I got about 300 dislikes in a minute, plus too many insults to count. Was not fun. And see, and this is what's so frustrating, is every change YouTube has made isn't going to affect a larger content creator, but it's going to bring a hammer down on smaller channels. And I mean smaller channels, people like under 1 million subscribers are now all in this same kind of mid-range bucket and entry-level bucket. And none of the tools got any better, but we're held to higher standards. So if someone just has a bug up their butt about what you've said or the kind of content you make, or they just don't like you, they can really wreck your day. And there's very little recourse for that. It's not like people are rushing to our aid. I mean, I guess I could be looking at trying to bring on more volunteer moderators and stuff, but again, that just is messy. It's expecting people to work for free to solve YouTube's problems. It's why I've been looking at other avenues to have conversations, why I resurrected the podcast and I do an audio version if you can't make the live show, so that you don't have to watch it on YouTube if you don't want to, because I talk a lot. It's pretty choppy waters out there, and it's a little less fun for some of that. From Ronald Collins, coffee, Coke, and beer for me. Oh, dude, I had that Guinness last night, and you're like, oh, I miss beer. I need to drink more of this. I should not drink more of this. From Joseph Kim, it's really sad that YouTube doesn't seem to have any competition. The race is over. They don't have any competition for a unified platform incorporating search. But if you are coming up today and you're smarter than I am, which that's a pretty low threshold, if you build your community through diversifying where you hold your conversations, you will never be beholden to YouTube. Build your community and build your discussions outside of the zeitgeist of the one big popular service. I am coming to a tipping point where the more reliable and higher monetization off of Patreon might mean there could be a near future version of SomeGadgetGuy where I just don't upload anything to YouTube. Not that I don't upload public, but maybe I upload directly to a service like archive.org. If I don't need YouTube, or I get less and less benefit out of YouTube, and I know YouTube isn't really positioning me well in search, and I have to bring my own viewers to come and watch a video because they're not getting proper notifications, so you have to follow me on Twitter anyway. If I start losing more and more of that platform benefit, then why stay? When this whole commenting fiasco came out, I'm still seriously considering turning off comments on my channel, because even with the higher level of automation in policing these comments, it's still a significant amount of time where I'm constantly firing up like the YouTube creator app to make sure that someone hasn't dropped something incendiary in my comments that somehow made it through a filter. You sort of always have that pressure in the back of your brain. At the same time that YouTube loves sending me videos about creator burnout. And you're like, you're the main cause of creator burnout. Your platform is the main facilitator of creator burnout. So don't pretend like you're helping me by making it way easier for someone else to blow up my channel. So if that's going to be the situation, then maybe it might be time to move on or start really time delaying YouTube. Like a video will go up launch day on archive.org. You can watch it, you can share it, you can download it, whatever. But then from there, a month later, the same video will go up on YouTube just to remind people that I still exist. I don't know what that looks like. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but I don't believe in the indomitability of YouTube. YouTube right now is in the most fragile position it's ever been in. And I don't expect there to be a direct one-to-one competitor, but it's not like there aren't other places for us to take content. It's just making sure our audience knows what's going on. From Pop Trigger, it's sad reading about companies wanting to do for podcasts what YouTube is for online video. Apple. All right, moving right along. Let's talk about Apple. Pop Trigger, that was the best segue because I just realized like I just been ranting for a while there. Back into news stories. I just wanted to cover this one real quick. Do I have it out here? Oh, it's right over here. I'm talking away from the mic. So, it's seeming more and more likely that we are getting the close to the reference design of what the next iPhone is going to look like. I have to express, I'm still not a huge fan of this generation of iPhone design and aesthetic. And one of the main things that kind of bugs me is for how these phones have maintained slimness, this profile, these rounded soft corners, design, blah, 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 blah. iPhone 5 to iPhone SE was the pinnacle, was the peak of smartphone, was the peak of iPhone design for one reason, and that was not having a big dumb bulge for the camera module sticking out the back of the phone, which interrupts the sort of the symmetry of this phone and makes it wobble when you put it down on its back on a table. And I end up keeping mine in a case anyway. So it doesn't look like they're going to fix that. But let me go into this article here. This is from Forbes. A lot of places have been sharing this photo. This is just the first one that I happened to find like a decently sized version of it. So this is from Gordon Kelly, Consumer Tech. I'm surprised they didn't title this Forbes has, Apple has a nasty surprise for the camera module, but apparently they had an editorial edict come down that they're not allowed to use nasty surprises in their Forbes headlines anymore. I'm sure Viper is very sad about that. Apple leak corroborates ugly new iPhone design. Apple is planning some surprising upgrades for its 2019 iPhones, but by far the most controversial is an ugly prototype design. Now it appears this will be Apple's preferred iPhone design. Respected Japanese site Mako Takara reports contacts within Apple's Chinese supply chain have confirmed the so-called iPhone 11 XI will feature a triple camera array which is housed in a large protruding square on the back of the phone. The design was initially leaked back in January by acclaimed industry insider Steve Hemmerstoffer, aka OnLeaks, but was ridiculed as being too ugly for Apple to use. Interestingly, Hemmerstoffer also leaked a second iPhone prototype which received a more positive reaction, but Mako Takara's sources state Apple has chosen the only a mother could love option. So, From Abraham Artemis. That's exactly what I was going to say. Hey, you guys, see the Mate 20 camera design? That looked great. Let's use that and put it on the corner. So, same thing that kind of bugs me, but way less protruding. You know, you've got this like, what was it that they used? It's someone made a case for the Mate 20 Pro that was a screenshot from the movie Commando. Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's carrying this like 4-barrel rocket launcher, and it lines up perfectly with the camera module on the Mate 20 Pro. Hilarious. Also, first rated R movie I ever saw. Commando is awesome. I love that movie. But the thing I'm going to give Huawei, by making it centered, the phone is more symmetrical. I like symmetry in my smartphone design. It's why I liked the Mate 20 Pro, the Mate 10 Pro over most of the phones that came out alongside it, was because of the way they bordered. You know, you had the flash on one side, you had the over-under camera sensor, immediately under it was the fingerprint sensor, and then one of the little laser sensors for the focus. All of it was like one perfectly symmetrical rear plate, and I like that a lot. Also, I'm going to be real bummed by an iPhone triple camera with the ultra wide way up in the corner for how we kind of have to hold phones. You're trying to hold the phone steady and you're trying to do this thing. Having ultra wides nearer that corner or edge makes it way more likely. I already find it pretty likely on my iPhone XS. It's not uncommon for fingers to end up in the shot when I'm trying to really hold this thing steady. Add an ultra wide to that, and it's going to be even more of an annoyance. Again, not a deal breaker, not insurmountable. You'll totally get used to it, even though I still haven't gotten used to Face ID or swiping for a home gesture. But yeah, it's going to be annoying, and it's going to be a change that Apple could very easily rectify. I'd much prefer having that quad assembly, 3 cameras and an LED flash right above the Apple logo, and make it one seamless straight path right down the middle of the phone. I would like that better. Oh, and hey, Fat Produce, Andrew joining the chat. Greetings, Earthlings. Everyone, give Andrew a congratulations. He just started a new job today. They're hooking him up with an amazing laptop. It's been good times in the Fat Produce household, and I'm really proud of him for making a little job transition there, because it sounds like it's going to be an exciting opportunity for him. Everyone, give Andrew thumbs up and clap and pat on the back, because he's a good dude. All right, but the big news, leaks and rumors notwithstanding, because we'll have to wait, I'm pretty confident we're going to see something like this on the next iPhone, the iPhone 11. But the big news today, this morning, the Apple Store went down to update new products, new tablets, iPad Air, iPad Mini. I got a lot of people in my comments, especially on Twitter, saying like, "Oh, are tablets even still relevant?" And I think the best argument for a still relevant tablet is probably the iPad. But what I'm excited to see, I'm excited about one thing and I'm super annoyed about another. But iPad Air, traditional iPad form factor. I am so happy about this. I have a huge personal stake in the regular iPad because this is the computer my grandmother likes to use. She is a whiz on her iPad. She's a formidable woman anyway, but I mean, just like she's off like taking photos with it, doing screen captures, FaceTiming. She knows her way around an iPad and doing some pretty advanced networking and media work from her iPad. I hated the idea of trying to move her over to like one of the new iPad Pros. She is so comfortable, so familiar, and so adept at using the hardware layout that we have come to know. I have a personal stake in this one. I'm so excited to see an iPad Air that still has a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, that still has a home button instead of, Face ID and thinner bezels and a more warpable frame for a woman that travels the world in her 80s. She needs a more durable solution, and that comes with a little bit of extra thickness. But we're talking about an A12 Bionic, starts at $499. This is good. This is an acceptable replacement for her older iPad Air. I would not have felt good about offering her an iPad Pro pre-bent at nearer $1,000. This is her jam. Like, this to me, I now feel like there's an upgrade path. There's an upgrade path for my grandmother, which means there's probably a whole community of people out there that are going to be better served by this than what the more premium end of the Apple marketplace is looking like. And right alongside, we got another iPad mini. Again, not really blowing the doors off of anything too exciting from a design standpoint. Instead, taking the form factor, the shell, really well-established aesthetic, and then just packing in some new tech. I still think the storage options are annoying. You've got 64 or 256. It'd be nice to have a 128 in there. I hate that Apple never gives you the middle because they know that they can just kind of push you over into the higher end of storage, where most people, I feel, would be just as happy going with the medium. Or not even just as happy, probably happier going for the medium option. But they don't offer it, so they can get that upsell. The thing that's annoying me, it can't be an Apple product release if something doesn't bug me a little bit. This is... Apple can't be taken seriously as a computer replacement solution. Let me just go back into screen share here for a second. They can't be taken seriously so long as we're playing games with the pointer stick, the Apple Pencil. It's a great stylus. It really is good. I mean, the end user experience of using an Apple Pencil is very good. It's not the functionality. It's that Apple refuses to include true human interface drivers for the iPad. So for something that's supposed to replace a computer, what's a computer? You can't connect a mouse to it. Now, why would Apple do that? It is my assertion that Apple prevents that because anyone who wanted to use it sort of Surface style, you got your little keyboard folio and you just click on a little Bluetooth mouse and you use it like a laptop. Apple can't make a proprietary mouse. People would go nuts. But there are still plenty of times where you want fine point control and not necessarily artistic reasons. Like you just want to tap directly into a tiny cell on a spreadsheet. You want fine point, that the pencil is really good at that. I've been using other styli on other phones for years now. And even for something as goofy as like playing a bullet hell shooter game. Awesome. My finger is too fat and my hand blocks too much of the screen. I want a tiny little stick that navigates. Like a Note becomes an amazing game playing machine when you're playing games like that. So we've got this $100 proprietary stylus. And you can't connect something like a mouse. Okay. The reason why proprietary is bad for a fine point interoperability solution is because Apple has already messed with the spec from generation 1 to generation 2. The iPad Air and the iPad Mini use the first generation Apple Pencil. The iPad Pro uses the second generation iPad Pencil. There are very good reasons how the products charge, magnets, blah, blah. But you cannot take your older Apple Pencil and use it on your newer iPad. You can also not take your newer Apple Pencil and use it on an iPad Air or an older iPad. I am very frustrated by accessory solutions which are completely locked to one product. Now, for example, I might get really excited about something like Project Linda, that laptop dock for the Razer phone. But the immediate problem with that is what happens when you want to upgrade your phone? You had this expensive laptop dock that now can't be used for anything. It's just e-waste. It's junk. And a lot of Apple accessories, for no reason that I can determine other than, there's an issue with the charge port. It has a different charge port. You can't use it. When I think someone who had a first generation Apple Pencil would understand that they'd need to use a different charger to upgrade to an iPad Pro, but nope, got to tack on an extra, $150, $120, something like that to get the new Apple Pencil, instead of just being able to use the accessories that they already have. When you have a Bluetooth mouse, like this, I have a Microsoft Sculpt Comfort. I want to say this thing is, I don't know how old this thing is. Let me see if it's even got like the FCC listing on the inside. It's a revision TX2, but it doesn't say when it was like certified by the FCC. But I want to say I've had this thing for, when did I get this? I got this with my folding keyboard. So I've had this since I got this around the Surface RT. I got a hands-on with the first generation Surface RT, and I've used it for everything. I connect this to phones. I connect this to laptops. You push a button and the Bluetooth goes, hey, you want to be pals? And then a pointer shows up on my screen and I do my work. Apple can't make money off of me on accessories like that because I don't flip my mouse for a proprietary pointer solution every single time I use a different keyboard. And that's been the same thing. Like, you'll see this in a lot of my reviews too. This is the Microsoft folding keyboard. And if I open it up, it'll automatically turn on and connect to the View 20 because I was doing the desktop mode on the View 20. But it's got built-in profiles for Windows machines, Android machines, and iOS machines, and it can connect to two different products, and you can toggle back and forth. So I can connect it to my laptop and to a phone, and then one button, bam, I'm typing on the phone. Oh, I got something on my laptop, toggle over, hit the Windows key, I'm working on the laptop. This has been going strong for years, and you wouldn't think so because it's really floppy and it looks very insubstantial. But this has been awesome. I mean, like, I want to buy like 3 more of these because they'll probably be discontinued now that I've praised them. From Dragonfly, I've got a Microsoft Sculpt. The FCC info is behind the batteries. I didn't want to just start disassembling the mouse on my own. So that's why I'm a little generally frustrated about the new iPads, but I've actually been a little frustrated by people complaining about the iPad Air being so similar to the older one. I'm kind of okay with this. I actually wish more manufacturers would stop changing form factor for dubious reasons and instead would look at simplifying and streamlining with more just internal improvements and manufacturing improvements. I really liked the iPhone style of number year S year. You always wanted to be on the S track. If you actually knew anything about gadgets, refinements, improvements, build quality, everything got better on the S year. And then the number year would come out and we'd have a whole new host of problems that we knew would be fixed the following year, but then the S years never sold as well as the form factor changes. And it's just so frustrating to not understand that the better consumer experience was happening on these off years. But then Apple would sort of redirect their manufacturing towards the number years and because that's what got people more excited. Again, trying to satisfy a consumer. Oh, it looks the same as last year's phone. It's like the same. And you're like, but it doesn't bend now. They fixed the antennas. The batteries are better. And the home button doesn't get gunk underneath it anymore. Everything was better on the S years. So I look at something like the iPad Air. And for all of the complaints that I've heard from people about things like swiping gestures, about accessibility, about Face ID being a bit more problematic on a larger slate that needs to be angled in the right way for it to scan your face properly. And I look at my 80-year-old grandmother who is just awesome. Just again, like I said, she does advanced computing stuff on her iPad. This actually makes me really happy. I am really happy to see an iPad Air, a more conservative, mid-priced solution that does a good job competing against mid-spec PCs and laptops, does a very good job competing against Chromebooks. This is exactly where I think Apple needs to be. The only thing I think missing from Apple's lineup is a return to the iBook. I really wish we had two completely clear and delineated lines of products. So if you call something a MacBook, a Mac Pro, that runs full OS X, a desktop-grade operating system, that's off on one side. But I would love to take iOS and put it into a laptop form factor, like a Chromebook or like a Lenovo Flex style form factor. It runs iOS. It only uses iPad apps, but it has a built-on keyboard, support for the pencil, touch screen, iOS. I feel like Apple is missing a critical product that just bridges the gap between iPads and MacBooks. And probably somewhere, I mean, you could even charge a premium for it. You know, you can put it near iPad Pro territory, like an $800 or $900 flexible foldable Chromebook fighter. But iOS is pretty capable for that kind of stuff. And call it the iBook. Bring back the iBook. I would love to see something like that. Now, amazing super chat, John O'Shea, just cuz. Well, John O'Shea, thank you so much for supporting production, for supporting this channel. I'm touched and honored by your contribution towards these types of discussions. Thank you so much. That was really awesome of you. From Marshall Clappert, only LG's headphone jacks are absolutely high end, right? No real competition anymore. I feel like Samsung's are pretty close. Just, yeah, I think it's more the amp. The Quad DAC does an amazing job of cleaning out internal noise, but we're sort of diminishing returns over some of the improvements Qualcomm has made. But when you want to plug in something nice, you want to go to an LG. From Doomer231, why do you need an iBook? The iPad Pro is already foldable. We're going to have so many of those jokes. We're going to be reviving iPhone 6 memes. We're going to have iPad Pro memes. Because you know, Apple is going to have some sort of foldable in the next year or two. And they're going to invent foldable phones when they're ready to invent foldable phones. All right, so that was the big Apple news. Like I said, I feel like for me, in how critical and how cranky I get about Apple stuff, I was a little taken aback by the wave of negative sentiment that I saw on my Twitter feed about these new iPads and tablets aren't relevant anymore. And like, I feel like they're a legacy product line, but there's a legacy there and a huge user momentum base that still needs to have good options, good replacement options, and newer kit to work with in an age of apps and services and online content. Again, I have a huge personal stake in this because of my family, but this was exactly the product I wanted to see, and I'm really happy we got it. And then Sage Tech, tablets are dead now, so that's the final word on that. From Sharil Abdul Rahman, do you think we will see Bionic-powered entry-level laptops within the next 5 years? I honestly don't know. I don't know that Apple will deliver something iBooky. I really want them to, because I think we're going to see, probably over the next 5 years, a crashing wave of ARM competing directly against x86. So chipsets from Huawei, from Qualcomm, from Samsung, with the horsepower, with the graphics processing, but then also with some battery advantages competing head-to-head against entry-level and mid-ranger x86 laptops. I think the writing's on the wall for Intel dominating all areas of desktop and mobile computing. And we're already seeing some of those initiatives, why Microsoft has been so aggressive in trying to figure out Windows on ARM. Not succeeding, but still trying. So if anyone's also going to join that race, this is why I desperately wish they would put out an iBook today, because I think they could be driving that discussion. I hate that we have an Apple that is mostly reactive. They could define the mobile workspace for ARM-based computing this year. The A12 Bionic is a monster chip, and if you have it in a phone, there's not a whole hell of a lot that you can do with it. For a lot of the phone apps that Apple claims, that fluidity and consistency of experience, I look at iMovie and my iPhone SE renders 4K video faster than my iPhone XS consistently with the same video files. Consistently. My iPhone SE on an A9 can outperform my iPhone XS on an A12. But you wouldn't have the thermal and battery concerns, the software throttling issues on a larger portable. Go iPad size, go keyboard dock, go bigger battery. Maybe even talk about some sort of more intricate active or passive cooling solutions. You can keep that thing running hotter, faster, more powerful for longer. And I think iBook would make a much better argument for a do-everything better than cover the basics, but pretty advanced computing portable platform that I think would be a very compelling solution. It's just, I think Apple is looking at these as hard divisions. You've got tablets and you've got laptops, and they don't want to muddy the waters between the two, and they've got infrastructures of consumers that they think are better served by keeping these separate. And I think that's the wrong play. Ronald Sims, Apple is weird. Powerful hardware that is not utilized to its potential. Not at all. I mean, their software development really seems hinged on, is it still going to run smooth on an A9? And that's great. And, I love my iPhone SE. I still think it's the best product Apple has ever made, ever in the history of the company. Well, maybe not in the history of the company. I still have a lot of love for the dual-core, dual-socket G5s. But it's frustrating when newer products are coming out touting all of these improvements and more powerful hardware, and then it's the same experience that we've had for years now. Doomer231, Windows 10 can boot on a Pixel 3 XL. So Microsoft is really getting on that ARM compatibility. I was shocked to see someone actually getting Wi-Fi drivers working on a Lumia 950. Like, that terrible Qualcomm chipset, that is a Snapdragon 810, which just cooked every phone that it had that came out that year. And here's, someone got Wi-Fi drivers working for true Windows 10 on that Lumia. Just awesome. Just amazing. A couple other conversations there. Okay, so just to wrap up our news and discussions here, a couple stories. I'm not sure how serious these are, and I'm kind of hoping folks will leave comments and as a part of this live chat, because I feel like there's an obvious trend for Android where Google and Alphabet are trying to lock down the Android experience, streamline it. And I think this is they make a change, like especially since Lollipop on, a little change here, a little tweak there, a new update there, changes to APIs, background processes, and just kind of buttoning up some of the perceived holes of the Android ecosystem. Excuse me. And every single time we get wind of something, there's like a positive aspect and then like a negative response from some of the more niche Android enthusiasts. And so changes are coming to Android Q, which seem to affect some of the more granular customization options that a very small number of people seem to like about Android. Let me go into, so like, this is we've got like Reddit posts and stuff like this. Let me go back into screen share here real quick. Apps on Android Q are no longer allowed to switch Wi-Fi on or off. This is not user changeable and will further reduce functionality of apps like Tasker. Then you go into the actual Android Q privacy changes to location and network, things that are probably going to make the EU happy, seeing as how Google got that crazy huge fine for how they were documenting location tracking and data collecting on smartphone users. But you scroll through all of this and they talk about, well, here's all the stuff that cameras can ask permission for. But then we get to restrictions on enabling and disabling Wi-Fi. Apps running on Android Q cannot enable or disable Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi manager .set Wi-Fi enabled parenthetical method always returns false. So they're shutting that down. If you had a third-party app, or if a manufacturer incorporating the newest build and staying on Google's good graces for the changes coming in Android Q, if you had some sort of like third-party solution for activating Wi-Fi, I get home and it does location stuff, and this app tells my Wi-Fi to turn on, turn off, or Tasker is a perfect example of a community of people that really like to make these intricate recipes for automating aspects of a phone that you typically can't do with traditional macros on Android devices. I can understand some of the frustration. I wonder, what were the concerns that Google had over apps being able to do this? Or if there was some issue or security threat where changes were being initiated without users' awareness that also couldn't have just been scrubbed out of like malicious apps in the App Store. If this is a problem with third-party services like side-loading apps that have some kind of malware, wasn't sure what the situation was for that. And again, the response on Reddit is mostly negative, with a couple people saying, well, it's not really going to be that big of a deal, or how many people are really using Tasker? Google has to consider the entire community. Do you keep leaving automation controls built into your mobile phone operating system when only a tiny percentage of users might ever engage with that functionality or with that use? So what do we do about that? How do we manage that? It's kind of wonky. And at the same time, we got another story, which was sort of a sky is falling analysis of Android Q. This is coming from John Woo, Top John Woo. Let me go back into screen share here. I see a common misunderstanding of my previous tweet. What I mean about not being able to mount RW literally means not able. I currently see no way to modify the partition by any means, which includes within custom recoveries. His initial tweet, one interesting fact, devices using this new logical partition overlay FS setup can no longer mount vendor product and system as RW. Google is forcing everyone to use Magisk modules. And this is a very, again, deep in the weeds, developer-focused, software writing way to say some of the ways that we craft custom ROMs today is going to get more difficult once Android Q is out in the public. Once it's getting, once more devices are coming out with Android Q. So by 2020, because we know Android Q isn't coming to any of our current phones anytime soon, it's going to be more difficult in the way that certain ROM developers make custom ROMs and then also make custom recoveries, TWRP. When your phone has a problem, you can hold a power button and a volume button, and then a menu pops up and you can nuke your phone or reset it or use it to flash different pieces of software. This has been one of those things. You've got this very, very small but passionate, vocal sub-community of Android device users don't represent anywhere near barely a percentage point of the overall smartphone ownership community, but they are crazy intent on customizing, making exactly the software, exactly the phone experience that they want to create. And then there are some great arguments when you look at things like Lineage as a solution for phones that stop receiving support. I think it's kind of dumb to continue buying phones from companies that then don't send out software updates if you care about that, and then rolling your own support while you still give them money so that you can support your own phone yourself. But I understand where someone wants a specific piece of hardware and that's maybe the only way to get it, and they also want to have up-to-date software. If that becomes more challenging and you have fewer and fewer enthusiasts and developers rolling that custom code, then yes, I think that would be very sad. But again, very sad for a very tiny chunk of the overall Android ownership. And again, this is why I kind of tie this back to the initial statement that I made. Like, I'm not really sure how serious this is going to be. I'm not really sure what the impact of this is going to be. And I feel like there's a fair bit of this that is sort of doom and gloom, sky is falling. Every time a major Android operating system update comes out, people run to the hills screaming for their pitchforks and torches. And then a couple months after the official release, someone goes, oh, hey, I found a way around it. But there was a leading edge of tech enthusiasm back in the day that did used to influence how products and services were created and distributed for consumers. And now I don't think they hold nearly any sway over manufacturers. The days of an angry brigade on XDA actively influencing the decisions of a top 10 manufacturer, I think, have been over for a while. And we're also in sort of the worst era of long-term support. I'm writing another article. I was telling you about, I was saying earlier, teasing, and this is kind of the transition, the segue out of this, is looking at phone performance. Looking at upgrades. So, any excuse, because I love this little Mighty Mouse of a phone, any excuse I have to break out my little Xperia XZ1C, my Xperia XZ1 Compact, it's still one of my all-time favorite phones I've ever reviewed, and I love having sort of like the perfect one-thumb, no-case smartphone to use. It's great. I just wish the camera were a bit better. But it finally got an update to Android Pie, and almost immediately got like another little patch update right after it. So surprisingly, I've got to give Sony some huge kudos for how they've been supporting some of their older phones. But I went through and I was like, okay, I really want to know. This is a Snapdragon 835. Comparing a 2017 phone running Android Pie, which almost all of my phones have taken some kind of performance hit after updating to Pi, especially with some of the video editing and stabilization benchmarks that I like to run. I thought, okay, this is also why I'm breaking out like my Mate 20, because we've got a monster SoC with the Kirin 980, and this is a phone that came out at the end of 2018, so roughly a year. A ton of differences for hardware, RAM, storage. By every account, the XZ1C should lose every single showdown that goes up against this monster Huawei, and I'm going to run the Huawei under performance mode. So, purposely running this phone as aggressively as I can. And so when you benchmark these two phones, there's something crazy. There's like an 80% disparity in Geekbench single core benchmarks, and then there's like a 65% disparity in multi-core. Like, just the Mate is just on paper destroying. I mean, you would look at those scores from the benchmarking app and think like these were completely different thing. Like we went from a horse and buggy to, a Ferrari. Like those numbers look crazy. So I go, okay, so that's what Geekbench is telling me. A Geekbench score that's almost twice as high on my Mate as on my XZ1. So let's see what actually happens. So I fire up Power Director and I do my 1 minute of UHD video. I render that video out, and the actual performance improvement is closer to like 20%. That's not insignificant, but that's also not radical. Not like what you see from those insane benchmarking scores. And then I fire up Google Photos to stabilize some video. And again, this is a sort of a weird combination of CPU and GPU, which the Huawei isn't as strong on GPU compared to like a Snapdragon 855. And the difference is like 6 seconds. So there's like a 4% difference in performance when you're doing something like stabilizing video in Google Photos. And I keep playing around, like launching apps. Yes, the Mate launches them a fraction of a second faster, but I have to like record 60 frame per second video and count frames sometimes to see the differences, the practical differences in launching an app. Loading a 16 megabyte Excel spreadsheet. When I tap them both at the same time, the Mate pulls up the spreadsheet a fraction of a second faster. But again, we're talking about a performance difference that I have to analyze forensically, looking at individual frames of video to pop that up. There is no doubt that the Kirin is more powerful, just as there is no doubt that the A12 Bionic in an iPhone XS is more powerful than the A9 in my iPhone SE. But we don't really get to do anything with it. We don't really get to utilize that. It's like software really doesn't take advantage of that. And when there is sort of a performance disparity or a performance improvement, it's like just brute force. It's not like there was any better optimization. It's not like app developers are able to tap directly into that. It's just been an interesting look back, because I feel like, again, this just sort of further reinforced, if we had better support, if Google and other developers were coding software specifically for efficiency, our gadgets would ease. Oh, and if we had some better repair options, like, you'd want to swap a battery out after a couple years, and they make that increasingly more difficult. Like, look at the new Galaxies. The batteries are glued into the phone, which is horrifically anti-consumer if we care about trying to maximize our investment on a product, when these things are already sort of grossly overvalued for how much they really cost and how much you can resell them for. But there's really no reason why a phone shouldn't be a 3 to 4 year product. None. This artificial cycle of carrier contracts used to be 2 years, and then you'd get a new phone, is silly and antiquated and backwards, and completely spits in the face of how much effort, how much human labor, how many raw earth materials, government contracts and conflicts around the world sourcing this stuff. And then some of it can be recycled, a lot of it becomes e-waste, and it's all super toxic. And you're like, we should easily be getting 3 to 4 years out of a purchase like this. And not like, I am making it to 4 years and the end of that 4 years is miserable and I hate the experience, so now I need a new phone. But getting to the end of the 4 years and having had adequate support, good updates, and that the phone still runs reasonably well for modern products and services. It's just really sad that that's the current state. Oh, well, maybe you'll get about 18 months. 18 months of software support. That should be criminal. Like, I you guys know I'm a bleeding heart liberal, and I'm going to turn to the government for solutions on things. But like, no, that should actually be against the law. in how much all of this stuff has an economic and environmental and human labor impact on the entire economy. And I see Easy Computer Solutions is in the live chat. Everyone say hey to Easy. Mauricio Gutierrez. Google is the same. A 4-year-old Nexus 6P is stuck in Oreo with mild secure patches. Not cool. Tech Leathercraft. That would be nice. They are trying to catch people that ended their payment plans to get into another payment plan. Why should you ever own your phone when you can just perpetually lease and flip your phone? So really don't think of it as like I spent $500 on a product and now I'm going to use it for 4 years. Just think I'm always going to pay roughly $50 to $60 a month until next year when it goes up to $55 to $65 a month. And then the year after that, I'll get a $2,000 foldable phone and it'll be like $80 to $90 a month so that I can do my payment plan, and I'll just never own anything. I'll always just lease everything. Yeah. From Marcel Clapper, you can pay $50 at an electronics store and they will change your smartphone's battery, but that's not consistent. And especially if if you like something a little different. Like, I don't know that I'd want to take like my Nokia. Like, who's going to know how to crack that open and fix it and keep the water resistance? Like, we need like a good design. What I want is not necessarily user swappable. Like, I don't want to return to the plastic backs of like LG G4s and Galaxy S5s. But I would love to see is a bolted frame, something a little bit more hard edged, like a Lumia 930, but with 2 screws on the bottom of the phone that help lock everything in place. And when you need to, 2 or 3 years into your phone ownership, you take 2 little Torx screws and you pop out that frame. And then you slide out the battery, you put in a fresh battery, you slide that back in, you put the used battery in a pouch, you send it back to the manufacturer so they can recycle it, and maybe they give you some new pads and like sticky material to replace some of the water resistance. Like, I feel like consumers, grown-ups, should be able to handle that, and for a nominal fee, you can send the phone to them to do the unscrewing and the battery replacement for you. But I want to be able to get in there without heating up the phone and melting glue and using suction cups to pop off delicate screen assemblies that now have your fingerprint sensors built into the display with hole punch cameras glued to the front, and then find a way to not destroy the inside of the phone to get a battery pried out of glue and bolts and screws and brackets and retainers with all of these delicate little ribbon cables that you've got to dance around. We could be designing these so much better, but that's not profitable. It's more profitable if you flip this phone every 18 months or so. And I'm very upset about that. Marcel Clapper, Android One isn't a good solution for low price phones. Looking at the Nokia 1, 2, 3, and 5. This is my Nokia 9 is the first experience I've had with a Nokia, so I can't comment on that. It's now I'm sort of holding Nokia up to this phone. Like, if they support this phone, I'll be happy because I have it. Goran Petrovic, you know what I hate the most? You know what I hate the most? The live chat keeps throwing this comment up. You know what I hate the most about modern phones, in spite of some advantages? Glass backs. I hate it. Easy to damage, smudge, needs cases, and they all look cheap and the same. I agree. I think glass is a terrible solution for a modern phone. From Matrix Millennium, LG V20 didn't have a plastic frame whatsoever. V20. Who knew that the V20 was going to be the last premium flagship phone with a user replaceable battery? So weird to think that was the end of the era. That was the end of that design. So funky. From Gary Fleshner. They clip in like a tiny Lego, and then Dragonfly replies, "Lego smartphone." I'd love to get back to Project Ara. I know it won't work for general, average, everyday consumers, but I'd love to see an enthusiast platform. And just pop in little like modules. I want a different camera. Let me pop in a different camera. I want to go from a 720p display to a 4K display. Slide out the screen and put in a new one. I want modular, real modular, not like Moto modular, but real modular. So bad. It'd be so great. And from Marcel Clappert, it's like killing the headphone jack. Good for the manufacturer, but not for the smartphone buyer. And I completely agree. Again, that feels very anti-consumer to me. So, folks, 2 hours, right on the nose. That was all of the links and stories that I had up today. Some surprises with the iPads. For me, happy surprises. For most everybody else, they seemed frustrated by that. Definitely check out some of those other services like Mozilla, giving a way to share files, You can look at Internet Archive. Please also support Internet Archive for backing up the internet, and especially if you were big into Google Plus back in the day. Maybe your posts will live on there. Just got another awesome super chat from Paco. Is it Paco Street? Paco Saint? Paco ST? You're a saint, Paco. £2 for algorithm and coffee purposes. And again, thank you so much. Also using this as a platform, I wanna throw it back out there again. Please consider helping, contributing, supporting, upvoting over on reddit.com/r/glowing rectangles. And please consider using that as a resource for sharing new content creators and putting new content under my nose. And hopefully we can also get some signal boosting for people that are doing good work that you enjoy, and spreading the word. Because I think it's going to become increasingly difficult over the next couple of years for someone to really break into this without just kind of playing the same algorithm SEO gimmick. And we want more than that. We want more diversity than that. We want more conversation than that. And we want a more vibrant and healthier community, not a more, one note kind of conversation. We don't want this homogenized. We want it spread out more. So, again, my attempts at trying to help with that, growing slowly, not super exciting, obviously need some help, but you can be a part of that conversation and you can be a part of that change too. And I can't thank you all enough for, continuing to join these conversations, for sticking with me through some tech and politics stories, because I know that they can be kind of a bummer sometimes. And then also for, just having a lot of fun with this stuff, because at the end of the day, this stuff should still be fun. Whereas Cranky and his old man waving my fist at the kids to get off my lawn, we should still be having a good time. Remember when this was all just fun and new and bright and shiny? Pepperidge Farms remembers. So thank you all in the live chat. It's time to wrap this up. Just a couple last little bits of housekeeping outside of our glowing rectangles. I do have, some people were asking just comments and continued coverage on the Nokia 9 PureView. A couple videos have come out looking at things like camera performance, and there's been some very interesting and some very beneficial chatter, some commentary, especially as it pertains to like comparing this experiment, this bug-eyed experiment with other phones. I still feel like a lot of the videos out there are just right before good understanding of what this phone and what this platform can do. And that's why I recently put out a video just saying Nokia 9 PureView camera not ready for a review. On the face of it, this is me taking 7 minutes of your life just to say why I haven't done a full camera deep dive. But I do share things like depth mapping images. I do break down some of the early experiences I've had in trying to maximize what this hardware can do, and some of the philosophical differences between this and sort of a normal smartphone camera. So a lot of people have been commenting, and again, like I said, I've been sort of just ban-hammering anyone that just strays off topic. They'll read the title and then be like, you just need to review it. It's ready to review. It's being sold right now. And you're like, that's not what this video is about, but okay, you didn't watch the video. So I might retitle the video. Who knows? But again, this is sort of a response more to the people that have been really aggressive in my comments saying like camera review, and why I've just not jumped immediately into dropping something that analyzes a product that I don't fully understand yet. Like I've seen a few, like someone was comparing sort of a landscape photo against the Galaxy S10 and complaining about how information farther away from the point of focus was blurrier on the Nokia than on the S10. But the S10 in bright sunlight shoots with a smaller aperture, so it has a longer depth of field. But they were saying, well, this is a compromise of the lens quality on the Nokia. And you're like, no, that's what you're seeing is the difference in depth of field and focus fall off because of differences in aperture. So that would be like saying like this really amazing prime lens on my camera takes poorer photos than my kit lens because my kit lens is f3.5 and the background is better in focus than on this really expensive prime lens, which is f1.4. So again, those are actually valuable things to point out about the differences between two cameras, but you look at that data and then you arrive at the wrong conclusion, and then you just have comments on the video full of people going, half-baked, not worth it, deal breaker, oh no, not worth it for the monies, better luck next time, Nokia. And you're like, I'm getting a little tired of the sick thrill that people take out of like, someone tried to do something different, totally failed. I'm just going to use the phones that I'm already familiar with because that's the best. I make wise purchasing decisions, so just keep making videos telling me I'm right, and I'll keep coming back to your YouTube channel. And I'm just a little tired of that kind of echo chamber. So I put out a video saying, it's not ready and I'm not ready. And give me another couple weeks and hopefully we get an update and some of these issues will be properly addressed. And then we can really rock and roll on this thing. So we'll see. Anyway, that was long and rambling, but I hope you'll check that out. Along with all the other videos that I've got coming out. I've got another View 20 video coming out. I've got a Watch GT, a little fitness tracker sneak look at something that's not quite a smartwatch, but it's still really pretty. And some other videos that I'm going to be shooting this week, along with some editorials. And yeah, this is going to be a busy week. I'm excited. Some good stuff. And my wife's up at GDC, so I'm going to be getting like all the scoop on gaming stuff. And then we're going to talk about that on Newegg this Thursday. So we're going to do another live stream, comments, and interactive broadcast on Newegg this Thursday, probably around noonish. We don't have our times nailed down. Anyway, lots going on. Too much for my brain to contain. And so that means we should end this. All right, folks. Thank you so much for watching, for sharing, especially for sharing, contributing to different discussions and platforms online. Amazing for all of you folks that were hitting the super chats up there. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And again, this live chat makes a podcast so much more fun to record and to produce and to share. So I love coming back every Monday, and I'm glad you guys like to come visit every Monday. So we can keep this going. We can keep our tech weeks going. This is good times. You know where you can catch me around the rest of the internet at SomeGadgetGuy on the Twitters and the Instagrams and the Facebooks. Not so much on the Facebooks. More on the Twitches. I just streamed Ape Out. That game totally rocked my socks. You should totally get Ape Out. It's brutal and fast and exciting and jazz, and it's awesome. I will catch you all next Monday morning, 9 a.m. Pacific time, on another episode of the Monday Morning Tech Chat Show. I want you all to have a fantastic week. I want you all to do awesome this week. I want you all to be awesome this week. And I want you all to have a blast with all of these techie gadgets that we like to play with. Be well. Take care. I love you all. Have a good one.